Nancy, you're the
Okay, so I'll just start. I say, welcome everyone. We're here to acknowledge International Women's Day, exploring the challenges and successes of women then and now. Um, I was going to introduce Marlene, but she's not here. But we will introduce
here.
She's there.
Marlene's here, but she's just off camera. There she is.
Oh,
There
okay,
she
okay.
is. Yeah.
Hi, Marlene. This is Please meet Marlene McKinnon. She's the president of BPW Ontario. And give a little wave, Marlene. Beautiful. Then Barb Hoare is our district director for our district. Now, I'm going to ask Jocelyn to do the land acknowledgement, please, and then we will move on.
Although this is a virtual meeting, we normally hold our BPW meetings in person in many areas of Ontario and Canada. We acknowledge that we are meeting on traditional lands of Indigenous peoples from many communities across the lands we now call Ontario. We thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate their continuing contributions and historic importance. We are grateful for the opportunity to work with the Inuit, the First Nations, the Métis, and peoples who continue to live on these lands to create a safer and more abundant future for all women and girls.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Okay, well, now I'm going to introduce the panelists. And they're in no particular order other than their first name alphabetically. So that's it. Barbara Worthy, you want to wave, Barbara? There's Barbara. Barbara is a producer, writer, director, Shaw Festival alumni, and community engagement coordinator for the Niagara-on-the-Lake Museum. She's well known in Niagara for creating original live shows, producing short and long form documentaries, recording oral histories, and working stories that capture Niagara's complex history. Her media productions include The War of 1812, multimedia Canada-wide touring production, Flames of War. The audio productions for the Voices of Freedom interactive Niagara-on-the-Lake. Barbara was also a CBC radio producer for 2 decades, producing both the Shushin's Legends and Myths series for CBC Radio's documentary program Ideas. Wow, very impressive. Christine Ray. Christine, would you wave? Celebrated speaker and a best-selling author. As founder of CSP and Business Academy, she has consistently driven innovation to transform the way real estate is marketed, elevated staging to an essential component of property sales. A passionate educator, Christine has mentored thousands of professionals, empowering them to build successful careers in the staging and decorating industries. She is instrumental in the development of a North American Trade Association for Industry Practitioners. Is that practitioners? It's Jocelyn Board, as well as the National RESA board. Okay. Debbie Katzmere, would you wave, please? Is she waving?
She's waving.
Yeah, okay. Debbie Katzmere is a seasoned marketing strategist, entrepreneur, and advocate for women's empowerment with over 35 years of experience helping businesses achieve growth through innovative and impactful strategies. She serves on the Niagara Region Women's Advisory Committee, supporting initiatives that support and inspire women in business and leadership. Owner of Prowl Communications, Debbie helps organizations by guiding them to communicate with clarity and purpose. A strong believer in collaboration and mentorship, she is committed to empowering others to achieve their goals and make meaningful connections. Through her work and volunteer efforts, Debbie strives to create a positive impact in her community and beyond. You ladies are all so impressive. My goodness. Karen Fraser. Is Karen here?
Oh,
Karen Fraser is running for Niagara Regional Council, representing Niagara Falls with decades of participating in city committees, events, and arts and culture, 16 years, and chair for 10 years. She works on the Seniors Advisory Commission, is a member and host and producer of our TV show Seniors News and Views, and has been a candidate federally, provincially, and city. She wants to be involved in decisions that benefit our citizens and housing. Lee Harper, Beeswayer of Niagara Bound Tours, a Black history tour company located in St. Catharines, Ontario, where Harriet Tubman once resided and where Frederick Douglass frequently delivered anti-slavery speeches. A fifth plus generation Black Canadian whose family came to Canada in 1851, settling in Fort Erie. She sits on the Underground Railroad Consortium of New York State, dedicated to preserving these historic sites through the state. She also is working with other U.S. states to establish a Harriet Tubman Trail that will end up in Ontario. Niagara is rich in Black history. As a proud multi-generational Black Canadian who recognizes what her ancestors and others went through, but were able to rise above, she loves to tell their stories. And I have to say, her stories are just amazing. We always enjoy her presentations. Melissa Axel, co-owner of the Niagara Essential. Where are you, Melissa? There you are. Thank you for waving. Co-owner of Niagara Essential Oils and Blends Inc., a two-time WIBA award recipient and winner, has transformed the oil and essential oils industry with her innovative approach. Starting from humble beginnings, she defied skeptics and carved out a niche, particularly in Latin. Her dedication led to the creation of over 150 plant-based products, all made in-house. With a farm location, successful retail stores, and a strong focus on community, Melissa's journey is a testament to passion, resilience, and entrepreneurial spirit. Okay. Now, Charmaine. Charmaine is our MC. And that is, she has a particular skill that she is able to draw information from people, and she will guide these panelists through this discussion. Charmaine Grace inspires individuals, groups, and companies by igniting sparks of hope and possibility that empower them to take their next steps in life, career, or relationships, filling her keynotes and workshops with charm, grace, and humor. They are interactive, entertaining, and memorable. Charmaine is an excellent facilitator and an engaging master of ceremonies. Coaching comes from her heart and helps clients find their answers, directions, and passions. In addition to her own programs, Charmaine Grace is a certified passion test facilitator, helping audiences and clients live their passion. And now I'm going to turn this discussion over to Charmaine. Charmaine, it's up to you now.
Charmaine, you're on mute.
I know. It's a bad habit. I'm either off mute when I should be, or I'm on mute when I shouldn't be. And that's okay. But let's start again. Welcome everybody to our roundtable on International Women's Day. And I want to especially welcome our panelists for being here today. I want to also, there's Karen. Okay, I also want to recognize Marlene McKinnon as the Ontario President of Business and Professional Women, and Barbara Hoare as our district. I know that Nancy mentioned it. I just wanted to recognize them as well. We have a couple of other members from BPW here as well. Jocelyn Deshotel is our immediate past president, and Nicely is also a past president and held several roles. You met Nancy as our treasurer, and I'm the club president and membership chair. So let's get started on this. We have some people want to leave early. The first question that Nancy sent out was about the history of International Women's Day. Can I ask you panelists, what do you consider the first incident of Women's Day? Can I hear what you guys think about that? I know it's a rough question. It's not coming out the way I wanted it to, but well, let me just you want me to ask people. Okay. I'm going to ask Leslie as she ducks out of the picture.
My thing is, I'm not understanding the question.
I know. What, the question is the history, origins and evolution of the day since its inception. And we've got 1908 as its inception. Are you aware of any earlier times for Women's Day, or what is your opinion of when Women's Day started?
I mean,
History. Mhm.
No, I mean, historically, you're saying, or just in my mind?
No, historically.
Historically, not really, but women have taken took chances on their own informally, I think, since time began. So it may not be recorded, it may not be documented, but there's all kinds of women that did all kinds of things their whole lives.
When I think I asked you because in my history search for it, I found a quote from a Sojourner Truth. Sojourner.
Also, Sojourner Truth.
Yes.
And those people went through my mind too, but I was sticking to Canada. So, but Sojourner Truth, certainly she took a hold of her own freedom. She had been basically a concubine as an enslaved individual, and she left the plantation as Isabella and became Sojourner Truth. And I was just in where was I? Somewhere in Hudson Valley, where they honor her with statues and commemorate her at City Hall in Kingston, New York. And that was just one of them. But there's so many other, especially during Black women in the U.S. for sure, seized the opportunity long before women were recognized in the U.S. But sadly, we haven't taken the time, or I can't get around to taking the time to research all the wonderful women we have in our own country. So the Americans always come to mind first.
I just love her one statement that she did when she started standing up for women's rights. And it was, "Ain't I a woman?"
Great. Sorry, say again. I couldn't hear you.
She said, "Ain't I a woman?"
Yeah, exactly.
So she was standing up for her rights. And I'm thinking that's something that we need to bring forward today, because there's different women with different rights. Let's find out what else. Okay, Barbara, what are your ideas on why we have International Women's Day?
Why we have it?
Yeah.
Because historically, women have been obviously not persons, not just with the famous five, not just because of the persons case where we were deliberately not included, even when they actually went back and said, do you include persons in this legislation back then? And they did not include women. But I think historically, even if I don't go back too far, but into the middle of the 1800s, when women were, their very bodies were owned by their husbands and their partners, and they did not have any control over anything they did, including what they wore. And so when you think it sounds a bit facetious, but you're thinking that if women were in corsets, which were a kind of bondage in a way, but those corsets would push their organs out of place. Those corsets literally made them unable to breathe. Those corsets did not disappear until Coco Chanel came into the picture in the 20th century. And when they were allowed to not wear them, because of what happened during the build-up with the suffragettes through the Edwardian period, the beginning of the 20th century, and then when women started working, for example, in the munitions field or agriculture during World War I, Coco Chanel, this brilliant woman who has controversial history, we know, but she threw away the corset. And I don't think people quite get, some people, I get it, and I think some people now are getting it too, is because I've worn corsets in shows when I was at the show, is when you get out of that corset, there's a certain freedom that comes. And it's metaphorical freedom, it's physical freedom, but you have the freedom to do and be and speak. And I think that then women started to stood on the shoulders of all those suffragettes and suffragists. One was a militant arm, one was a political diplomatic arm, and they were at war with each other. But finally, they came into one voice. And I think that once that voice started to be heard, we started to realize we have to raise ourselves. We have to give ourselves this Women's Day. I know there's a lot of men that would say, now, what about Men's Day? I don't think they have men's studies at university. When I went to University of Calgary, that's when I first understood there's women's studies, because it is interesting. We have.
Do you know what Women's Day, Christine? Do you know? No? Oh, that's okay. I'm asking hard questions here, I guess. I just will share that in 1908, women in New York City held a demonstration for their rights. And that was one of the days declared as the beginning of International Women's Day. I have a whole list of other things, but I won't get into that. How has the focus of International Women's Day changed over time from back in the early 1900s to today? Melissa.
Well, in the 1900s, we were having to fight for just the basics, but now we're in this area where we're fighting for more, which is equity in pay and the workforce, just getting jobs, just like all the men out there. So I do think that there's quite the difference, but it's still the same fight. So it's all about us women getting together and working together to try to get equity in the workplace, in our lives, and make sure we have our place in the world.
Thank you. That was well said. That was well said. Okay, let's come out of the history and go back into gender equality was the second one. Do you think we have seen significant progress in gender equality, Debbie? And that's globally is the question.
In my mind, yes and no.
Okay.
In some areas, it's a lot closer to being equal, but in other areas like the executive boardroom, the politicians, the higher level of things, no, we're still not there. And it's something that we all have to work towards, but making it, I don't know. I'm kind of an odd one because as much as I celebrate women, I'm also I look at the whole picture and what it takes for everybody to get there, not just what we as women can do. So sometimes my answers aren't what women want to hear.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Where do you think we need more attention for gender equity? Can you answer that, Christine? Oh, you're muted.
I did that so that there was no background.
Yeah.
For me, it's things that we can't control here in North America so much as the fact that there is something like every 3 seconds a girl is forced into marriage. That there's no equity outside of North America. Maybe Europe there is, but I think in the countries that are underdeveloped, women have no education, they don't have access to healthcare, and and being forced into marriage is just unbelievable today. And we see that if with immigration, then those sort of same practices come with whomever it is that's, say come to Toronto, and then they'll do kill a woman because she's dishonored the family. And it just blows my mind that in today's world, we are still dealing with things that are barbaric from centuries ago. That to me is where we need to put a lot of work to get that eradicated completely.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Sorry, Charmaine, Melissa had her hand up and then
Okay.
Leslie.
Yes, Melissa?
I just wanted to mention that we're very unrepresented in the leadership positions. And I think that if we had our moments there, like with us making less than men in the same exact position, there's a lot that still needs to be worked on. But I do love how, Niagara on the Lake, Canada, we are trying to commit advancement to gender equality and empowering women and girls as well. Starting young will also help.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you for that, Melissa. Jocelyn, you said somebody else's name?
Me. Excuse me.
Yes.
What I did think about before coming here today was the fact, and it follows with what Melissa just said about bringing along our little sisters. And I think I've mentioned this in the past. I believe we have come a long way. There's things that I think about that we just kind of take for granted now that we didn't have before, but we have now. We still have a ways to go, absolutely. But we also need to make our younger generation of women aware of what was before and what is now. And I don't think we do that nearly. Do we do it at all? I mean, there's all these lunches that take place all over the city. How many people bring a young person with them? Or maybe there is a project for you, Nancy, have a dinner in the evening so then people can bring young women out of classes, so that they can attend and learn what happened before. I took my goddaughter to see the movie about Flora MacDonald when she ran for the Conservative leadership. And she was the first woman to ever run for leadership of a political party. We walked out of that and Emily said to me, she said, why don't they teach us this in civics? And we don't like, and so now when a woman's running politically, Emily's generation and others just don't even think that there was any problem with women running. We still see an issue, but they don't because they don't know what happened before. So we don't have to go back to 1908 to see some of the history. There's history right within our own formative years that we can
Absolutely.
build and grow on.
Excellent. Excellent. And
Can I just
yes,
jump on
go
that?
ahead, Barbara. Yes, please.
I think and that's exactly what I feel, Leslie, all the time. Every time I hear young women who don't choose to, who can vote, don't vote. I think one of the things they have to remember and be educated to is how hard women fought to get the vote.
Yeah.
And even if you don't know what to vote for, educate a little bit, put that little cross on that piece of paper.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's, a lot of other people are making the decisions for you. And we have to encourage them to vote and not feel like it's worthless. Because now there's so many people that do feel, what difference does it make?
Exactly.
It does make. And if we look south right now, we look at where women's rights are being slowly taken away again, it can change. It can change without suddenly, Handmaid's Tale is right in your face. So I think we have to try to encourage
Almost living it.
We're almost living it again.
That's
And I think it's a very important time and a very treacherous time if we don't remind people of that.
so true. Thank you for that. That brings us in. Go ahead.
Do you want the chat? Do you want me to read what's in the chat?
You can, yes.
Okay. Charlotte posted in the chat, I heard a story about a few generations ago that parents did not guide or teach their daughters. It was for their husbands to tell them how they liked it. I agree we need to take special care to guide and teach young women, or else we get more of the same. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Charlotte. That is a good point. And just where the discussion is leading us, I think that what it's leading us in is to women in leadership. So we are getting more women into leadership, but what is the importance of women in leadership roles? Can I have a volunteer? Or Karen, you haven't spoke yet. You have to unmute.
Okay. Women in leadership roles. I still feel I need more support. I know we talk about it and there's workshops and everything, but I still don't see it in the meetings too much. And therefore, individually, we have to stand up for ourselves with men and with women. So, but and I think with my years being in various committees, I've learned how to do that. But before I started being involved in the community, I had no idea what I was doing. And I remember I went to a workshop and we were talking about rights and freedoms. And one of our rights is we have a right to our own opinion. And I was floored. I thought, really? I have that right? I didn't know that. So, that was an eye opener for me.
Thank you for that, Karen. How many women here don't understand what Karen said? We have, or I came into this thinking I don't have a right into a lot of this not being allowed to speak. Can anybody else relate to that? No?
No.
Yeah,
Leslie?
I can in a way. I remember growing up that I just felt that some professions were not available to me. I remember I wanted to take drafting in high school, and they said, "You can't take that. You're a girl." I went, "Oh, okay." You
Yeah.
imagine me just going about, I can't even imagine I agreed to that now. But that's one of the things we need to tell our young women as well. And also, there was a time where when I was in Toronto, U of T had 3 engineering students in all the departments. That was it. On all the areas in engineering, there were only 3. And now it's gone down a little bit again now, ladies. I'm not sure why, but at one point it was 50-50, and I just dropped my jaw. To think when I was going through my formative years, there were only 3 females in engineering. And then there was 50%, 50-50. So those are, things that come back.
Wow. Wow.
I'm going to jump in there and say
Yes,
that,
please.
so doing some reading on this, obviously, last night late, but I came across this business expert, Carissa Reniga, somebody you might know, but she's very much in the young business world, a leader. And one of her quotes, which I thought was worth noting, she says she has 65% of her customers, they're a consulting company for young business, young executives, are women, but they are less profitable than their male customers because they require so much more support, because it's so much harder for them to say what they want. And that came up in the panel yesterday at the luncheon, where I think it might have been Diane Hughes who said that women should not be afraid to ask for money, and we should not be afraid to ask what we want. And the other thing is that we have been so programmed that we have to ask, and men just assume. And they have been programmed to think they can go and get it. There's still an element, not necessarily in my world, a different world, but coming through the arts. There's other things I can talk about if you want, but it's definitely still out there that women still want to ask, and we need courage and support to remember we're still in a predominantly patriarchal system, so we still have to achieve our potential. And I think that's something female leaders are still better able to handle the complexities of today's world, and I think we have to realize our potential, and it's empowerment that we need.
We need empowerment. We need to speak up. Exactly. Jocelyn, you have something to say?
Yeah, I want to point out that Joy put a comment in the chat. Faced the same issues, Leslie. Science and mathematics, as well as any electrical or construction trades, were discouraged.
Oh, yes. Yes. I know when I went to school, it was girls went in home ec and the boys went into shop. Charlotte, I'm going to leave the speaking right now to the panelists. If you want to write something down, and we'll come back to it. Okay. Debbie.
So to Leslie's point about the drafting, so my father is a tool and die maker, and I wanted to be a tool and die maker like my father. And my father says to me, no daughter of mine is working in a machine shop. And so we compromised, and I took drafting, and I was the first female person to go to college, Niagara College, for their mechanical engineering, drafting, design. but more to my father and how he raised us. So I'm the oldest of three kids. My and the other two are boys. So my father taught me how to change my oil, change the tire on my car, that kind of thing, just in case I didn't marry and have a husband to do those things for me. He was worried that I've always been pretty outspoken and did what I wanted to do, that I would end up a spinster. So I always thought that was quite interesting. And I've led my life doing exactly what I want to do when I want to do it. So
And kudos to you for that. I'm still learning how to do that, even though I've been in non-traditional work as well, but I don't want to go there. I want to know, why is it still a challenge for women to break into the top leadership roles, besides the fact that we don't know how to speak up? Is there anything else that's stopping us?
Yeah, I think it's a lot.
Christine.
It's mental, I think. Because I deal with women of all ages. When I first started teaching my program, the average person coming into this new industry that was developing 24 years ago was over 50. And now it's late 20s, early 30s. But they all struggle. Very rarely is there an outstanding someone, but all struggle with putting a value on what they see as natural talent and turning that into a business. So we are a 97% female driven industry, but the men who come in go big, make millions of dollars, and many women just struggle to even understand their worth of $150 an hour, say. And I see it time and time again, and they struggle because they're running a household and they have a job and they also have children and they're responsible for them. And they're trying to come to class to build a business of their own. It's the money that always holds them back, their own value point. And, as much as I try to get that beyond that, it's incredible to me how they don't see it as a valuable skill set that they own. If you've been moving your bedroom furniture around since you were 3, there's a talent there that can now be turned into a business. But moving it from, well, doesn't everybody know this, to a commodity, it's something that they struggle with. And it's across all age groups and it's all demographics, ethnicities. I see it all.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Any other, well, what steps can organizations and government take that'll create the opportunities and allow women to speak up and become leaders?
Well,
I think the opportunities are there. Sorry, Barbara.
No, go ahead.
I just think the opportunities are there.
Yeah.
It's a development within. I think you have to start young when they're in school, and they have to be taught that there's no limits, there's no ceilings.
Okay, great.
So I
Barbara.
was looking at the stats on Canadian employment in the civil service, because they are our largest employer, I guess. And apparently we have the most number of women in top executive positions in the Canadian civil service than any other country in the G7, G20 actually.
Wow.
And I thought, I had no idea about that. And that was a 24 stat. And Catherine Blewett, deputy clerk, she's the highest ranking, and she said that in the Canadian Federal Public Service, as far as they're concerned, the glass ceiling has been shattered. That was her quote.
Oh,
That was
okay.
the
I
80s.
thought, really? Is that true? And they've done things like introduce legislation that allows both parents to share childcare responsibilities. There's regulated workers to request flexible work arrangements. Pay equity has been introduced, and gender budgeting has been part of the obligatory part of federal budgeting, apparently. So that and flexible hours is something that's coming up in the next election, because there's this idea that 3 days a week on site and remote, the rest is not going to, actually everyone's got to be there for more. And then there's this argument against that. This is all under the civil service. They've got a lot of regulations that the rest of us who are not a civil servant.
Exactly.
Anyone here amongst us is a civil servant? I've been a freelancer till 40 years until I came to the museum. So I don't know, it's a different world of protection, but at least it came out, I guess, under the federal government over the last few years. One wonders and hopes it will continue if we get a new government, whether the Conservatives, I know that there's been talk with PP has said that he is not necessarily in favor of those flexible hours, but there's many reasons why flexible hours work, especially for women who are holding the four corners,
exactly.
caregiving, working, babies and elderly parents. They are still the primary caregivers, and I think that's something we have to fight for. I think there's a value in that, but I was shocked to find out that we are in the most number of senior civil servants are women.
That's in the federal government, yeah, and I don't know too many in there. What about Joy has said or Jocelyn or somebody said in here about mentors, the role of mentors.
First, I'd like to read the comment that's in the chat, if you may.
Okay.
From Joy, a major factor that prevents women from growing and moving into upper management roles is twofold. The mentorship process, in that there are no women in the higher levels to mentor women to enter these roles, and also the current leadership resistance to allowing women into their ranks. Unless we find allies among the male leadership, women will not have the advantages that the men have in many professions.
Thank you. Comments? Karen, you're muted.
I still think the bottom line is men view the women as weak or too emotional. And I think they have to work through those opinions. And I'm not sure how you can do that other than us, holding our own, drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah.
But I do think the upper male leadership people see us as, oh, that's nice, but not willing to give us full credit.
Okay. Comments? Anybody else in the panel? No? Yes?
Well, I think that some of that starts with us as mothers. Like, we have to teach our sons that their women are no different than they are, and if we're not teaching them that, then some of that falls back to us. Like, not all of it, because it's a societal thing, but it really is our responsibility to make sure our sons know this.
100%. I totally agree with you. Debbie, you were going to say something earlier about how some women wouldn't want to hear this. What were you going to say?
Oh, well, yeah, I've been in business for myself since my early 20s, and I'm 60. So at that point in time, there was no help available for me. I was a single mother and had two young boys, 4 and 2, and I carved my own way, and I didn't dwell on the fact that there was no help for me. I just did it. And I think that sometimes people are too dependent on other people doing things for them instead of just doing it themselves. So, as much as I believe that women can do everything, I also don't believe that, how do I put it? So going back to older terms, I was never a women's liber. It was just, I did what I had to do to make what I needed to happen. And that was just me. And even today I sit on a lot of boards and groups and things. And I don't walk into the room with, I'm the woman in the room. I just walk into the room and do my job, whatever that job might be.
Leslie.
I agree with you, Debbie. I've moved away from the women thing and I do the black thing. Like, I don't walk into a room and go, oh my gosh, I'm black, I have to whatever. I'm not racialized, I'm not marginalized. Don't put me in those categories. You just do it. And I agree with you 110%. I think oftentimes we're telling our children that and for our women for sure, that we tell them all the obstacles, but we don't tell them that you've got to rise above it. and just go for it. You just set your mind for it, no matter what the barrier is. Because I do, like I say, I moved away so much more from my identity as a woman and into the part of being Black. And I read about successful Blacks in the US and how were they successful. You know what? It does start in the home as well, Debbie. Excuse me. You have to tell you can be anything you want to be. That's one thing that seems to be a universal line. And that's real easy. And I post that on my Facebook page today, that we can tell these young women they can be anything they want to be and that they're good enough. We have to let our young women know that they're good enough, because with the whole my big thing with women, and particularly Black women now, is like we want respect. We're intelligent. We can do this, we can do that. And then we run around with our butts hanging out or our boobs out hanging out with what we're wearing. And it's like, what? I'm not saying they can't wear those things, but I'm just saying, how do we not confuse our message?
Yeah.
And that's part of us as mothers of sons. We all had to make sure that our sons understood what messages were coming across with that.
Well, what messages are?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm asking, do you? I don't like. I get infuriated when I see, in particular, young Black women flouting their butts and their boobs, and it's like, so what do you want to be when you grow up?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, and I get angry and think welfare and having babies, because that's what that seems to be what their goal is.
Thank you, Leslie. I see exactly what you're saying. Karen, what do you have to add to this?
At one point, I had an international student stay at our house, and he said to my boys, "You boys are good sons." And they went, "What? Why?" He said, "Because you don't hit your mother."
Whoa.
And they said, "You hit your mother?" "Yeah, when she's talking stupid." So it's a culture thing too.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we just tell them in Canada we don't do that.
Well,
Some people do, though.
it should be in the Citizens Handbook, but it isn't.
Wow.
Wow.
Melissa, did you have a comment?
I'm just going to go back to a little bit of something of courage and self-doubt, because I think in the younger generation, there is a lot of courage, but I think it's still embedded in us that we have a lot of self-doubt and we're wondering if we are good enough to do those higher job positions or get paid more. So I do think there's a lot of education that can happen. And I do think there are some things opening up more. I think I saw Niagara College has a course about leadership, and I'm seeing it in kids camps as well. There's leadership roles, and I've been very happy to see those things starting to come out, because we can say anything we want to our children and promote them and give them all the courage they want, and then we push them out into the world, and then they wear booty shorts or things like that that make them feel, empowered. But that's not what empowerment is. So I think lots more education needs to be done. And I think it's probably our responsibility to kind of pave the way and give them, and they don't always listen to us. And that's the thing, we can tell them all these things, but hearing it from someone else sometimes is so much more empowering. So courage, self-doubt, I even have it still every day, but it's how you overcome those things and you access the things around you and the people around you and really listen to what they have to say.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
I would agree. Can I just say one thing?
Christine, yeah,
I know
sure.
when I was doing a bit of reading before the session, I read that it was on it's an international organization that started because I am a girl. Do you remember that? Remember that whole thing? Well, apparently there's no longer in play, but it said 73% of Canadian women still have the expectation or believe that the expectation is still there that women will be mothers and wives. 73% of Canadian women still have that belief. And it must be genetic or something. I don't know. I mean, I have a great granddaughter who's 4, and she's like, I guess I have to do the dishes. I'm like, you're 4. And, but she loves it. It's the one thing. But my grandson wouldn't dream of it. He's like, no, it's a woman's thing. And he's 7, so Where does that come from?
I think it is, you're right. I think it is in our DNA. I mean, I grew up with my mother helped me change tires and taught me how to change oil. Like, instead it wasn't dad, it was my mom doing that. And every job I've ever had, even in the freelance world, I was always working with really strong women. I've been really lucky, powerful women, dragon ladies, and I've enjoyed that. But then Melissa, but what I read preparing for this? I didn't know about this, so I'll be really honest. I had no idea this had started. But I read that Melanie Joly, Minister of Foreign Affairs, has announced the launch of a Women Foreign Ministers Group. And it will act as a mechanism that will help protect and advance women's full and meaningful participation in decision-making and leadership roles, powerful tool in making sure women act in global diplomacy and decision-making. And I thought, this is so perfect because I'm so fed up. All the time you see on the news, you see in the pictures, it's all these row of suits. And all this row of suits making these decisions for me. If I had a daughter, how would I say, look at all those men making decisions for you, sweetheart? Like it, so I just want to see a row of women up there because we do think differently and we are clever at this complex decision making. And her doing this, I think it's kind of brilliant. It will support increased representation of women in international negotiations, decision-making bodies at all levels. I mean, I want to know how do we get on this? Why can't we? We should find out about this. We should talk about this. So
we should. Barbara, can I ask you if you have the website or that, if you could put it in the chat? Oh, you have the document.
It was a media release that went out.
Okay. That's awesome. That answers the question. What organizations, what was the question here? The question was,
You could probably just Google Melanie Joly and it'll pop up in Google.
Yeah,
Melanie
Joly.
And the launch of the Women Foreign Ministers Group, WFMG. Ah,
Yeah. No, that was announced. It wasn't announced too long ago.
February the 18th.
Yeah. I remember hearing about it.
that's exciting. That's exciting. Melissa, you had your.
Okay, I'm sorry, before that, I would like to read what's in the chat. And the reason I do this is because when we put this meeting on YouTube, none of the chat comments will come up in there. So a little while back, Anne had commented, yes, Joy, we must begin to teach our sons to be more respectful of their sisters. Charlotte had written, as an engineer, I looked for people who had the skills, respect from the front lines, similar philosophies, not women, men, or color, and built relationships with them. I want to be the person who can learn from anyone. Joy wrote, I think societal perspective on how sexuality and sexual confidence is perceived so differently between women and men, and this is also a factor. Marlene wrote, years ago, I was talking to a bank manager at an event, and the discussion turned to training for women. He indicated that he would not train women because they would go on maternity leave. I asked if he would rather a woman that was putting down roots in the community or a man that would take the training and then leave the branch in a short time to a new job. And he could not answer. Thank you.
That's a good point, Marlene. Thank you for that. Yes.
And that kind of leads me into, creating a womanizing work environment, being flexible on the schedule. Yeah, we are the ones kind of having children, taking that, role and doing the dishes like as a kid, that was mentioned. And I think that womanizing your environment, making it more flexible because we do bring a diversity, we have a different opinion, and we do make a productive workplace. So I do think it can be done within the business, being able to make different policies and things to help promote and encourage women to, know that their worth is something.
I think, and then I work for my CEO here at the museum, the Niagara Lake Museum. Sarah has 3 young children, 10, 7, and 6. And I have to say that sent her ability to be such a fabulous manager and to still be an amazing mother is something I look to and I admire hugely because she gets it. And that's exactly what you said, womanize our environment and that flexibility, because women are always going to be the primary caregivers. We can't take that out of our DNA. Why would we? We need to embrace that. And I think it is, isn't it? But on embracing our femininity and not thinking it's a negative, thinking it's a positive. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. It does. Like Wow. Well, to do that, the one question that Nancy gave us is the role of men in gender equality. And how can they be our allies in the fight for gender equality? Like,
I think oh yeah, my thing's
go
on.
ahead, Stacey.
I've been watching I guess since COVID, you get to be more relaxed and watch more TV during that period of time. And I like period drama a lot. So during that period of COVID, my husband was watching Downton Abbey and Call the Midwife right alongside. And he kept going, really? Is that how it was? And I'm like, yeah, I was an executive woman in the 80s and 90s. And, I much like Debbie, you just get on with it. You don't say I'm the only woman, but I remember Elaine Herzog being a stockbroker was amazing. In St. Catherine, she was amazing. And Laura Sabia, just those were role models that you look to and think, okay, well, they're women and they can do it, so we can do it. But we just got on with it, you just do. And I thought that was part of me being British, having come from my parents and grandparents and gone through the war and put up with it. You just soldier on. I went to an all-girls school all my life. I just never saw that it was a struggle so much until I've gotten a lot older and you start reading the history.
Same here.
Holy
Exactly.
smokes, those
Ditto.
people went to jail to get us the vote. We have to go and vote. We must go out and vote. And we should know the history of our own family, like your grandmother and your great grandmother and what they've been through. But the bottom line is like Amal Clooney fights really hard. Rape in war, and that's always the same thing, and you never get away from that. We are dominated by the strength of men, and we can be raped and we can be thumped and we can be killed very easily. And now that there's no major deterrent, I just see all the shows are perpetuating women get raped and they get killed and they're thrown away as disposable. It's culturally, you see it on every show. It's the women who get beaten, who get killed, who get dragged, who get trod down. Strong characters come through in a lot of the TV shows now. You see the captain of I don't know, the police department is a woman, but it's still the crimes are all about women, and it's just accepted. I think that has to change. You have been in TV, Barbara. Would you find
Radio,
that
but
a lot?
well, as an actor,
Yeah.
I produce one. They are the spoils of war, no matter where and who. And looking back at the horrific, even the Allies in the Second World War, you think because they were the Allies when they were advancing on Germany, the women were the spoils of war.
Yes,
And
Russians came in.
absolutely,
Great.
I've been making this wonderful documentary with a series of them of the Mennonite history here in town, and the women who were left after their men had to go either to Siberia, literally, or fight in Hitler's army. They were forced. The women were left, and then they had to abandon their villages because the Russians were coming, or the Germans were coming. And First World War was the Russians, and Second World War they come the Russians and the Germans coming. They had to leave because they knew they were going to get raped. Women have been the spoils of war,
Yes.
and it's happening today. And
There are women in Africa who know when they go into the bushes that they're going to be raped. That's just part of their daily routine.
Oh.
And then when we talk about World War II, was it the women, the movie 688?
Yes, I saw that.
Awesome what those women did. By the way, Christine, I recognized your name, but it wasn't until I saw the things when they said staging. Hi, former neighbor. Former neighbor. And my other thing is I was thinking when you mentioned Laura Sabian, does anybody remember how she used to say women have the Antilles, and we are no longer like that until we get married, until we have babies.
Antilles, okay.
Remember she used to say that? And I think of her a lot. Like the women that were there before, and Agnes MacPhail, like no picnic for her in the House of Commons back when she was first wanting to have an opinion. I think maybe we should put our focus on getting the history out there more. We used to get it out there, but a lot of the names that have been bandied about today, people don't even know those people existed. And I think it's important that would help our young people know and help them understand, like with my Black history, I love to tell them the stories of it. You think you had problems, let me
Yeah.
tell you about. And,
Well, thank you for that comment, Leslie, because next month, April 12th, BPW Niagara Falls is holding a Tea Party for Progress.
oh,
And it's to imitate or mimic how the famous five got women declared as persons.
oh, cool.
So that's coming up next month, October 12th, or April 12th.
That's soon. That's soon.
Melissa,
Even, even just on that one issue there, though, against women's safety, it's a part that I have to now teach in class because as an entrepreneur, you are now going to go into somebody's house and have a consultation. You also have to think about your safety because you're a woman, right? So it's parking on the street under the lights and, having a fail-safe process to be able to say what happens if that person behind the door isn't or is nefarious, is going to something happen to you. And you have to build it into the job. And guys don't do that. You don't teach men to be safe when they're going out on their day-to-day life.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
but we have to do
Funny,
it.
when I was a teenager, my mother was the very first female car salesperson in Niagara. And it was unheard of for a woman to be selling a car. Not only were the people in the industry not supportive of women being there, but the people buying the cars didn't really want to buy from a woman either, because what could a woman possibly know about cars?
Yeah.
And as time progressed, she became the top selling salesperson. And part of it was because she did her homework. She knew the cars. Part of it was because people trusted her. She wasn't your typical used car salesperson.
Yeah.
But
Just trying to get it sale.
going through all of that, she changed dealerships a few times. And there was one, I won't say which dealership, but the owner of the dealership was a very womanizing man who just thought that he could have his way with my mother. And she kept threatening him, and threatening him to leave her alone. And he just wouldn't. One day he crossed the line, and she's 4 foot, she was 4'11", tiny little woman. This guy was over 6 feet, and he crossed the line and she just jumped up and decked him, like just plowed him in the face. He fell flat on his butt and slid across the showroom floor. And after that, my mother had no problems in the industry.
Oh, that's
But it
awesome.
was her having to stand up for herself
Yeah.
that made that happen.
Yeah.
Exactly. We were always
That
afraid
thing.
to do that. I think we need to learn how to do that more.
Well, yeah.
Well, I do have to admit that I was studying industrial maintenance. No, I did study industrial maintenance mechanic, and I was a dispatcher for heavy construction. And the one day, one of the guys came in and said to me, "I'd like to get you down in the sewer." I said, "No, you wouldn't." He said, "Yeah, I'd really like to get you down in the sewer." I said, "No, you would not." You would not like it at all. I grew up with 3 brothers. You would not enjoy that process at all. And he backed off, but I got respect from him after that, because I didn't get girly on it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
just
there's a
said-
thing right there. You see, there's a thing, and we have to, that's exactly it. We have to, I think it's a sad thing to say, but if I had had a daughter, she would have been in self-defense from day one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we know that it's sad that we have to have that, but I do think it gives you enormous self-confidence. And being in sports and doing something physical, it does give you gives you a physical strength. It gives you physical confidence. And I encourage that as well in young girls, just to go take the risks, because you do discover your own physical strength, which does help.
Okay, so we do have some comments. from Anne. She did post a link. If you save the chat, you will get the link. She says, see today's standard for 2 pages of suggestions to help to educate women and girls on the various aspects of their lives and their futures. There are books, movies, activities, etc. Joy had a comment, even sharing our own experiences and history to the generations following us, sharing our experience helps them realize how new our rights actually are. The perception of women not being seen as property, the right to buy a home, have a credit card, these are all really very new. And Joy goes on to say, have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. I have to leave for another appointment. Thank you for sharing your insights. Charlotte wrote, there would not be a problem if they heard the word no. I am not okay tolerating workforces for future professional women where they have to get physical.
Wait, there's more we could get into on that aspect of it. So what is the future of women's rights? What would you say is the future? What changes do you hope to see in the next decade for women globally?
We can't lay down.
We can't lay down, no.
We can't take it for granted. And I think maybe, I don't know, we have a federal election coming up. Well, who knows what the mains, it's crazy now, but I still think it's important to make sure we know where these candidates, all candidates, stand when it comes to women's issues and which ones they think are important. And I don't think we do that or push that as much as we should.
And watching on those regulations of women in the workplace, because once we don't have flexibility in the workplace, then we're limited what we can do unless we're entrepreneurs and self-employed. But women in the workplace have to have flexibility. We have to employ that and make that, as I think it was Melissa said, feminine or womanly. What did you call it, Melissa? I liked it.
Womanize.
Womanize, yeah.
Your business.
And that's where we have to see our politicians are supporting that.
And I also think, speaking out when there's sexist behavior, advocating policies for gender equality. Nellie McClung was a Canadian activist and author, said, never retreat, never exploit, never apologize, get things done and let them howl.
Yay.
I love that.
I like that.
I do too. Say again, Melissa, please.
Never retreat, never explain, never apologize, get things done and let them howl.
Karen.
Okay. Just as an aside, let you know that I will be on the ballot for the federal election for the Green Party. So you'll know who I am. But I do my family history, and I look back, I get emotional. I look back at my 4th great grandmother, whose husband had 2 families on the go at the same time. When the other wife, I don't know, this is Scotland. When the other wife died, she went to court to have her son declared as his legitimate firstborn son. And that was in 1870. So how she had to fight to get that declaration as a female in the 1870s, she did it. And I just admire her dedication and her love for her family to do that.
That's awesome. That is really, there were a lot of very strong women in our Canadian history and in history all around. I don't know that we would have made it if it wasn't for those strong people. So,
I think it all does come down, if you could put it in one umbrella, education. And even though I find mentoring quite challenging, but because of for years being a freelancer, there's time to do it. But I do think if you spoke to a Christine or any one of us we've said tonight what it was like growing up, we just do it. Debbie, we just do it. Melissa, does. You just do it. We can tell that to young girls. That's what they need to hear it from, not their mothers, who is it? They don't listen to other mothers. They'll listen to someone else who stands there and can say, look what I'm doing. They can see in education circles, they just got to know, they've got to know what's there for them, because us growing up in our generations, I grew up and went to an English school Christine. I didn't know half the careers that were out there for me because, I was told to go to domestic science and don't do physics, don't do math, like don't do this. And, it wasn't at all me. And we have to let them know what's out there. The world is out there now and they can do anything. And unfortunately, some of the most tragic things that happened, like the Montreal shootings at the college, when all those engineers were shot, that's when women started to realize what? There was all those girls studying. And we have to remember that some of these women, we stand on their shoulders through tragedy and through loss. We now have to let our girls know.
That was my next question. Melissa, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, although we've come so far, there's still things happening, and it goes way back to our youth. I've even experienced it with my daughter, 11, in sports, enjoying it. And there's not as many sports teams here in Niagara on the Lake. So she had the joy of joining a boys' team, which was amazing. But then she was told, maybe I'm strongly suggesting you go find a girls' team. And it was her first time she realized that there was a difference between boys and girls. She actually didn't know, and it was crushing. She took 2 days. It was very emotional. And then she came back and she was like, you know what? No. And she went and made this amazing sports team. It was a women's team. But at the same time, it's still happening all the way to 11-year-old daughter. So, and this was recent. So this is still happening. And so we still have a lot of work to do. But I definitely think we have come quite far and have so many inspirational people here in front of us that have made a difference. So I think we just got to continue on and hopefully give her the education you need to keep strong and never back down, never retreat, never apologize.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you
That's
for
so
that.
true. So there is a chat comment from Charlotte. I met an engineer recently from McGill, still over articulating how women don't belong in engineering, and he married a mechanical engineer. So maybe it's tenure.
Okay. And maybe it's in tenure. Yeah. How do you get that? Yeah.
I want to know why she married him.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Well,
What?
that's really raises the question is how can younger generations be empowered? And we've said it a lot with education. We've got to bring the history into the schools, I think, and do things to make sure that the girls understand what it was like and how things can be changed, right? It's just so frustrating. What else can we do? Like, I don't know.
I don't know, but I think it takes a certain amount of life and a certain amount of age before you really value the history of anything.
Yeah,
I remember coming from England, and I was maybe 24 to Canada. And then when I started working in Canada in the 80s and got on the committee for St. Catherine's Centennial, I was like, wait, 100 years? And then all of a sudden I'm looking back to Britain going, well, we've got thousands of years. Like, where were you guys? That was my catalyst for looking at history and being appreciative of what I'd left and how much of a role they'd played in the development of the world. So maybe you have to get to a certain age before you start looking back and thinking, you know what, that was pretty awesome what my grandma did or my mother did. I mean, I did have a strong mother. She was a single mom in the 50s, which was unheard of, and did save and got her own house, had 5 jobs and raised 3 children. So maybe that rubs off on you. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
To go along with what Christine's saying, because I do Black History tours, what I do when I go into the schools and I have little ones I'm talking to, I always encourage them. I said, we're talking about Blacks today, and I tell them all about my family. I certainly didn't grow up proud of my ancestry. I didn't know it, but I know it now. So I tell them, go home, ask grandma, ask mom, dad, ask brothers, sisters, aunts, uncle, a little bit about your background. And you're going to find people in your own background, and I know we're talking about women today, but it may be men or what young men or women that in their history that have done something really tremendous that they can hold on to, and it becomes part of and then they acknowledge that part of their DNA to help them move forward. And the history part, I agree, we don't get into it till we're later. I hated history in high school.
Oh, I did too.
That's all I have.
I did too.
Wonderful library of history books.
You're right, though, Leslie. You know, if we can go back and look at our own generations and ask what happened with the women in our generations. Like, I'm in my 70s now, and I just last year found out about what my one grandmother did back in Russia and how she stood up to the invading army. Luckily, the grandfather was not around at the time, but she fed them and she did what needed to be done. And then when they left Russia, my grandfather got injured. They wanted to take his leg, and she wouldn't let them take the leg. And she nursed him, and she brought him and 4 children across Europe from the Russian Ukraine to the ocean and the ship across. Like, I never ever considered her as a strong person.
Yeah.
Until I heard the story of her.
Yeah.
With 4 small babies, small children, right?
That's where I think that's where I'm with these Mennonite stories, exactly that story. I feel like that's someone like me, that's my responsibility to help tell those stories.
Yes.
Why we in the museum, we are the history is the future. And I think that's why we have to keep doing these stories, record them, and then we have to let people hear them. So we have to also, I mean, I got a grant to tell this, to record those stories just like yours. And thank you to the government, the federal government, who gave the museum the money to allow me to make these stories. And I feel incredibly, like responsible for doing it. And that's where we have to have that kind of regulation and that kind of sensitivity to those stories being told and shared. And then we, as independents and women who just get on and do it, because otherwise we wouldn't be on this panel, we have to find a way of spreading these stories. I think in full circle, I think what is the theme for the Canadian International something? Oh, here it is. Hang on. I've got it here somewhere. Here we go. International Women's Day 2025 is strength in every story.
Strength in every story.
Yeah.
So every woman's story is a
There is.
testament to resilience, determination, and the power, opportunity, everything that we've just been saying, the power of opportunity. And I think that we have to somehow get that word out. So our job at older than 20, are ways to tell those stories in our communities.
Barb, do you want to hear any of my
Yeah, you do.
stories, or are you just doing Niagara on the Lake stories?
Well, with the museum and the funding we get, it's for Niagara on the Lake.
Only Niagara on the
Niagara
Lake.
on the Lake
I'm
is really
so
big today.
appreciative of Niagara on the Lake. I wish it was Niagara District.
Yes.
Remember, it is Niagara on the Lake it's 5 municipalities, so it is big. And let's hope it stays that way. There might be a change in the future, right? As the provincial government's trying to change.
Doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be. Just keep moving forward. Never say never. Haven't you been listening today? Jeez, Barb. Babs.
Yeah,
Never retreat.
never retreat.
Yeah.
We're all survivors, that's for sure.
It's well, I imagine that amongst all of us, we would have some pretty fascinating stories of the women in our backgrounds. But let's keep moving forward. Go ahead, Melissa?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that, along with all the stories we should keep alive, there's also a lot of things that are accessible by women now, like the the GNCC has the WIBA, the Women in Business Association. There's the WIN, there's the NWEC, and even Niagara College is starting to do some education within the system. So there's more that we can access as well. Stories paired with education. I think there's a positive future for women.
I think so.
Oh.
I might have to leave.
Okay, and that's what I was thinking. One of the things here is that women need more of is economic power and financial independence.
Well, we all should be studying accountancy, especially us in the arts. We should all take accounting in school. Like, that's a big one. Like, learning to be financially savvy. It doesn't come easily to me. And yet I can do other people's budgets, but not my own. So I think learning that in school, again, comes down to education. Having power over your own, what you can make and money, and learn how to make money, make more money for you.
Okay. Okay, good, good. But can I just ask the question about how does being economically empowered and financially independent, how does that help women in society? What are the results of that, of being economically and
Gives them,
empowered?
gives them more options.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of options are we looking at? Any idea?
No, because I'm lousy with money. Don't ask me. I know what I should be doing, but how it translates,
I think it opens a lot more doors if you're financially sound and you have the means to do what you need to do, want to do, or whatever. Where the problem lies is that even if you are financially sound and you walk into a bank and say you want a mortgage for your house or you want to buy your car or whatever, the first thing they say to you is, where's your husband? Or what other income do you have? Or like what, you're looked at like you, even though you have this wealth, it's not good enough if it's not backed by a man. And
I didn't have that. I wasn't asked if I had a spouse. I was asked if I was married, I guess, but because I ex. So I wasn't told because I didn't have a partner. I didn't have to face that. It was more about how much money I made and my income being lower than being in the arts. So that's where I found the difficulty.
yeah, well, so
Melissa?
a
Oh,
good friend of mine is female, quite wealthy. She's made her own money her entire life, and she's done very well for herself. And I know of four separate instances where she's gone to purchase something, and in one particular case, the she was looking at buying this is going back 20 years probably. She was looking at buying $100,000 car. And the person she was buying from um didn't want to speak to her. He wanted to speak to her spouse, even though it was her money, her decision. It is what she wanted. He had nothing to do with it, but yet the car person believed that the male should be there. And she's run across this a lot.
I do find though that, today, and then I probably have to go my last little vent. Sorry, I don't mean to take up time, but I do think that even though it was a little big, the Me Too movement gave women a voice.
Mhm.
And I think that there was so much publicity about it, which was fantastic, that young women saw other women standing up and saying what happened to them, even though it was horrendous, but they were speaking out. And I think we'll only know as we look back, but I do think that that movement changed a great deal about how they were heard in society and their voices.
So there was an answer from Marlene about your question, Charmaine. It
Yeah.
allows them to read their financial statements, how to write a check, budgeting, because everything today is the almighty debit and credit card. And she wrote, years ago, after my divorce went through, I was paying all the bills and I had to reapply for the mortgage.
wow. Wow. Oh, well, years ago, I had some things as well, so I can understand. I think that if we can get women believing in their power and believing in their worth, they get increased autonomy and agency when they have economic independence and financials. One of the things we need to know is some of the rules that go with money. Because like Debbie, in my case, Vic moved in with me and he bought a car, and a week later, the car company said, "Oh, your girlfriend's got to sign for it." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, you're going to sign for it?" And I said, "I'm going to go and talk to them about it because I don't think I have to." And when I walked in and the paper said co-buyer, I said, "I don't need to buy a car. I bought a car from you guys 3 months ago and I didn't need a co-signer." why does he need a cosigner? Well, because he lives with you. He said, if he lived with his brother, would his brother have to cosign? Um, 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 I had to wait a weekend to get the thing from the accountant that I didn't have to cosign. He didn't need a cosigner. It was just because we were new together. So when we start, I think that amongst women, with our young girls and even our friends now, we've got to ask each other, is this right? And what can be done about it so that we can stand up for things so that we have more power. We want our girls to have improved social and political participation. And money helps them do that if they're not worrying where the next meal's coming from. We want them to be stronger and less vulnerable. And money and financial independence gives them the power to ask those kind of questions. We want them to have enhanced family well-being. That all comes from it.
So there was an answer in the chat to Marlene's comment about what happened with the bank manager. Charlotte says, today we need to report outside the corporate structure at a human rights center. Barbara Worthy says, many thanks. I hope to meet you all in person.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's so much that we
I
can
think what
do.
you're saying is it sort of comes back down to women have to be paid the same as men. That gives them independence. It gives them the opportunity for education. I know
Yes.
two of my girlfriends' daughters have just graduated, one as an engineer and the other as a vet. And they both, sort of started at $100,000. And that's amazing. When you think about it, they're 24 and
Yeah.
starting at that level of income. That's going to give them a certain amount of independence there.
Melissa.
I think also just independence in having control of your finances. Yeah, sometimes you don't have the money, but if you had the control of your finances, you could actually decide, okay, do I have to ask to buy my kids a pair of shoes, or do I need to ask to buy groceries? Because you know your finances and you know what's capable. You don't want to have to hide and fear and some purchase you made. Maybe you even splurged on something fun for your children or for yourself. You shouldn't have to, ask about those things.
Exactly.
Having control of your finances also has that.
Exactly. And having the financial independence. Like,
Mhm.
wow. So how can we be supported in gaining equal access to economic opportunities?
Okay, well, I've heard that some women will talk about what they are getting paid in the office. And, hearing maybe a man getting paid for the same exact job as the woman's doing, getting paid more, finding out that little tidbit and actually going to your boss and asking for a raise. That is a possibility. And with everything in place now, with policies, they can't just say, you know what, I don't like the way you're talking, out the door you go. No, they have to take what you say into real consideration. So, sometimes talking about those things with men and women, finding out where you're standing and why you're not getting paid the same, bringing it up and fighting for what you have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else? One of the problems that women have that I discovered in my research is that women need to be connected to financial resources. A lot of women may not know what's available or assume that it's not available to them, so that then they don't ask. When I get a story about buying a house, and I went to my bank to get pre-approved, and I almost cried when I left it. It was terrible what the bank wanted to give me after I paid off 2 car loans and 2 student loans and all kinds of stuff. But I went out and I started looking anyway. And my real estate agent matched me with a mortgage broker. I got almost twice as much as the bank would give me, and I bought my house, right? Because when you start looking for possibilities, you can find them.
Yes.
But women need to be connected to finances and resources so that they can start their businesses, so that they can grow their businesses. And they need jobs that are not low paying jobs. They need, okay. What else do they need to accelerate to gain equal access to economic opportunities?
So there's a comment in the chat from Charlotte. Banks would look at a client who makes 70% on the dollar as a much higher risk. And she also said, thanks, that's brutal. Thanks for sharing, Charmaine.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. There's so much. There's so much that we can do.
Ladies, I just want to say it's been a pleasure meeting you all. I do have to
you
run,
have to leave too, Christine.
but
Okay.
and fun seeing you all.
Thank
you so
you.
much for the invite.
Thank you. I never got a chance to really thank
Barbara. It's
I know
Barbara.
that senior moment. I've
Barbara.
been there and done that.
Someplace. Anyways, thank you. Thank you
Oh,
very
my
much.
pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that we're getting into some other questions that I don't know that we want to focus so much on. As what do you think the conclusions for today have been so far?
Well, there is a comment from Anne. I think Charmaine has made an excellent point. Sometimes your attitude means more than the rules. Why do I have to do that? Obviously, the rules were easily passed over as long as you were not willing to give in.
Exactly. We have to teach our daughters and our fellow women to ask questions. Karen.
I think no matter what topic we've covered, we have all mentioned that education is the key.
Yes.
So I think that's today's takeaway for me to talk to my granddaughter about, is always wanting to know more.
I like that, always wanting to know more. That's excellent.
And wherever we meet a younger person, make sure that we let them know. I haven't participated in former mentorship programs, but I do find that when my young hairdresser, for instance, is a young Black woman raising her child basically on her own. And so I encourage them and talk to them about being the best they can be and tell them they're good. And I never, ever miss an opportunity to do that. So that's something we can do on an individual basis if we have those crazy schedules.
I love that. Any little mentoring we can do to the girls in our lives, especially since it was mentioned earlier that there's a point in our life we're not going to listen to our mothers. Because I don't know, I turned 18, I knew everything there was to know about anything. And when I was 30, I learned that I didn't know anything about anything. And my mother was right. Things like that. Excellent. So if we can mentor, that's a powerful skill that we can do to help our girls get rid of some of the stuff that's in the way of Women's Day. Like there's still a lot of questions that we talked about, like reproductive rights and addressing violence against women and sexual harassment and that. I think that if we can give the young girls in our lives, this is my opinion, is if we can give them the confidence to stand up for themselves and to question things, it'll make a big difference in all of those areas. Any other comments on that, Debbie or Karen?
Well, I think that all youth need to be given confidence today. Like when you look at the younger generations, today, male or female, they're nowhere near where we were as younger people. They expect more to be given to them, A, and B, they're more aware of everything that could go wrong, and they tend to dwell on it. And it's instead of, we haven't taught them to go beyond the dwelling and do something about it. So again, it's education that and giving them the opportunity to help themselves, not wait for somebody else to help them. To me, 90% of problems can be minimized if people just empower themselves to do it. It's again, my difference of opinion on I'm not a firm believer of handing people things. They need to work for it themselves. So
You know, well, I agree with that. And any other comments on today's youth?
I mean, I have a youth in my house. And yeah, she has so much confidence. And then there's this side of self-doubt, you know, with all the social media that's out there now and, you know, everything. So I see both sides of things. And, you know, I do think just promoting education, letting them know they can do anything, and not letting them stop or give up. And if they make a mistake, don't let them stay home. Just get back out there and keep going, because that will make you a stronger person. So, you know, just supporting them as any way we can, but they have so much access to things that, you know, I don't even know how to combat it sometimes.
Yeah, great question. What is the social media's role
Yeah,
in advocacy and in amplifying? Ha, has it helped amplify women's voices and movements?
absolutely it has.
Me
Definitely.
Too has, the Time's Up has, yes.
But it's just accessing the right things at the right time, because there's a lot out there that can, you know, do the opposite, you know, or crush a spirit just as quick as it can, you know, push someone up. So,
That was the question. What are the benefits and drawbacks of social media as a platform for women's activism?
I thought, and like, there's definitely a lot more awareness out there for like even Women's Day. Women's Day in the last few years has taken off dramatically because of the push through social media. But on the same hand, for all the positive that's out there, there's 5 times as much negative. And you know, you don't always get to choose what you see on your feed. So it's very difficult for people to weed out the bad versus the good, especially when they're young and they're impressionable and they don't know yet. And if they're at all insecure, it allows more of that negative to infiltrate than the positive. So it's really difficult.
and I don't know if anyone's been on their calendar, but Google has removed National Women's Day from our calendar
They
as the
they've
holiday.
removed all days, actually. It's not just that. They've removed Black History Month. They've removed all of that stuff. It's no longer where they want to be.
Hmm.
So it's
Well, then what can we do? What can we do as individuals and organizations or governments to promote gender equality and women's rights? And I think we've said it a lot with education.
What I would recommend, and BPW could take the lead on this. Not a lot of people even know BPW is around anymore, which saddens my heart because my mom and I were very involved in the Fort Erie chapter years ago. And I think you guys could be the front runners, and I can't help right now. I've got to work on my business, but advertise like this program, like you got to, but I couldn't share it. It wasn't on Facebook. That's my thing.
Oh,
You know, but like your thing you're having in April, that sounds interesting. Bring in the history, talk like, you know, and see if people will bring their young daughter or niece or godchild or whomever to that event. But get on Facebook. I can't share it unless it's on Facebook.
We have a
So,
page on Facebook. It's called BPW Niagara Falls, and the MailChimp newsletters go directly to that page, and it had been shared on there actually quite a few times. And we also
oh,
group BPW.
okay, let me find it then because I would have shared this event, but so it's called Niagara Falls BPW.
BPW Niagara Falls, and also the group BPW Niagara Falls group.
Oh, I
And
am in the group. How come I didn't
yeah.
wait a minute, maybe I'm not, oh, no, maybe I've joined. I don't know, maybe I'm not following something. I'm sorry, but I haven't.
And most of us members of BPW Niagara Falls actually did put it on our own timeline. And so
Oh,
advertised.
Yeah, I see there's a posting from you on the 4th. I never saw it. Sorry.
Well,
I'll look from now on. And now I know there's something on April the 12th, so.
well,
Yeah, I shared it. I know Christine shared it out to other people. The problem with it is being like if this event was done at another time, not necessarily for International Women's Day, because like yesterday there was probably 10 different events
yes.
locally for International Women's Day. This being a Saturday and the sun is shining.
Yes.
People are not attached to their computers. So
Yeah.
so I think it needs to be a year-round thing, not just a March thing.
Oh,
We
that,
can make it whatever we want. It's like Black History Month. People go, it shouldn't be just a month. It's like it isn't. You build from that month. That's how I look at it. Like I take February and work it all year.
no, both of you, that's a really good point, that we can make talk something every month about women's International Women's Day, or
And the other
strengthening
thing,
our daughters.
the other program that I remember years ago, and this could be for men and women, is how to lobby. People don't know how to lobby anymore, and there used to be a wonderful workshop because we talk about voting. So running a workshop on how to lobby. Like I can still remember some of the points I learned, but people don't do that anymore. They don't lobby. They don't, you know, I'm never sure if those standard letters are very effective or not.
No, I don't know.
I don't know, but there used to be, and I guess you'd have to find somebody who knows Roberts. I don't know. The person I remember is, anybody remember Bonnie Gillings? She lives in Lewiston now, but she ran a program on lobbying 1,000 years ago. But I'm sure you'd find somebody that could run. That would be a program that you could run, get some mileage out of too. And then have a all candidates night with Karen and all the females that are running for political office. Congratulations.
Wow,
There's a lot of stuff. I
there
don't
is.
have time to do it though. I just give suggestions.
I think there's a new group that just started as well, that the whole emphasis on that group is to educate and engage women to move into politics and civil service and that kind of thing. So that's good. This group seems to be something that's going to continue all the time, not just at election time, which
That's
there's
good.
always been a program where you could go and take a mini course kind of thing on being a woman in politics, but it's always been just at election time.
Well, there used to be political parties had women auxiliaries or satellites that used to be around. I don't know. Is it Judy LaMarche groups? I don't know. I know the conservative women don't have theirs anymore.
Oh.
Or the NDP women. I don't know if they ever had one. I don't know. But BPW could pick up the banner on that, boy.
Well, I think
Lots to
in
do,
some
you
cases,
guys.
the political one is that, in the movement to give women equal rights, some of those groups have gone away because they feel that as long as they're creating a group that's woman-based for that purpose, they're effectively saying that they are not equal and they need to be sorry, they're saying that they're not equal, therefore they have to fight for it. Whereas if the group doesn't exist and the women are just doing it, then it's stronger.
I get that too, but just sitting here, we're losing. Because we're not doing it as a group. We're losing mileage, if you will, impact. I
Yeah.
think a little bit. So we still kind of need these things. But I hear what you're saying, and I agree because I kind of feel that way personally.
Mhm.
You know, like if I can join a mainstream with men and women, different back, all that, I'll go with them and I'll go with that. Like I feel like I somewhat graduated from the women's organizations, if you will. No offense. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
No, I understand.
But
Well,
I, you
even
know, I
myself.
used it. I felt I didn't intentionally do it, but I felt like I had used BPW years ago as a stepping point for me to get involved into mainstream politics. You know what I mean? Like start there and then, learn about doing resolutions and all that kind of stuff, and then move into the mainstream with the boys, if you will.
So, like, even myself, Nancy in my bio mentioned that I sit on the Niagara Region Women's Advisory Committee. To me, like, I attend the meetings we have meetings every 2 months, and I attend and I listen and I even participate. But I feel like a hypocrite because a lot of the topics they're talking about are not just women based. And they apply to all people,
Yeah.
regardless of gender. And especially now with the whole DEI thing, 90% of their conversations are around DEI versus women based. And on top of that, the committee actually doesn't do anything but just sit there and meet.
Exactly.
We don't promote anything. We don't take anything to the region. We don't um, advocate for anything. We just sit there and have meetings.
Wow.
So,
So I
Well,
feel like that brings up like kind of a good point because, young women that are just starting to grow up, get in their 20s, where do you start? You mentioned BPW, Niagara Women Advisory Leagues, like, you know, maybe we don't know these groups. And, we do have the internet and we can Google things, but it's like, where do you start? So maybe like a resource page or something where we can list all the resources together and the benefits of all these different things. Then you maybe have like a start point. So maybe that would be my opinion.
okay. Thank you, Melissa. Anything else? I'm going to ask the rest of the group to feel free to jump in and talk. We're almost done now. If there's anything that you can think of about improving, not improving, about encouraging equal rights for women and other things that we've been doing for women. It's escaping me now. The one resolution we're working on, Barb, with Brampton Caledon. Can you what are we
Oh, that has to do with mental health issues.
mental health
Yes.
issues of women? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Anne.
Okay, I've been sitting here biting my tongue all afternoon. It's been wonderful hearing all you women and all you accomplished people who, most of whom I know, which is really nice. But I think BPW does have a system whereby we don't work alone. We, as Charmaine and Barb just mentioned, there's resolutions that there's a couple of groups who are working together on. And these resolutions go to the government. They don't just sit there and say, we think they should, blah, blah, blah. We do something about it. We write the things and then we repeat what we want. And I think that's really important. We also work with the, let me think if I got the right title here, the Niagara region of, you all know who I'm talking about.
Oh, the Niagara Regional Council of
Council of Women.
Council of
Yeah.
Women,
District
yeah.
Council of Women.
Yeah. Now we work with them too.
Yeah.
So therefore we are spreading our information out considerably. This is not an easy job ever, 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 because it's been so many years that women have been downtrodden. I mean, I am so fortunate. The more I listen to other people, I think I came from a family where my mother didn't take anything from anybody. My father told me, I said once about whether I could do something. And I said, oh, I don't think so. He says, what are you talking about? You can do anything you want. Okay, I got permission right there.
Yeah.
To do whatever I want, and I did. Mostly. There's a few things I didn't get around to, but it was probably just as well. So I think, it's well to, I don't mind the comments because other people obviously don't know what other groups are doing, and that's our fault. We aren't letting them know well enough. Now we have, as Nancy mentioned a few minutes ago, we have 3 or 4 events coming up in the next couple of months that we are working really hard on. We're having this pink tea, which came, the idea came from many years ago when the suffragettes couldn't meet because they were merely women, of course. They couldn't have a hall meeting or anything because mere women didn't do that, but they did have teas. And that's how they did their subterfuge. They had teas. And of course, that was what they were expected to do, have a tea, because that's all we were capable of. But they didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. Now, this tea we're having in, I think it's April the 12th, will be in because of the suffragettes, and we will be certainly telling their story at that tea. We hope, as far as I know at this point, there's no charge for it. And the information will be coming. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, there is. There's a small charge. I forgot. It's not big, but it's worth it because we need to do a lot of work, although we're getting a lot of help from a place we never expected. So I hope all you women will think about coming. It's soon that the information will be soon posted. Please look on your Facebook pages. I am connected to some of you, and I'm always posting something about BPW. Come and join us. Come to a meeting. We'd be thrilled to have you. I know, Karen, you were out once. I only know once or twice, I think, that I mentioned. And we'd love to have you again. And Debbie, I've known you for so many years. We'd be delighted to have you come out to meet. Right now, we meet on Zoom, which I love because it saves me so much time.
Yep.
And I've gotten to the point where here I am talking to all of you people. And it's wonderful. I feel like I know everybody I've met on Zoom. It's just as good as in person. Well, just about as good. So please don't give up on us. Please help. Please put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. And we have to do things for our young people. Our young people have no idea what we went through. They have no idea.
Exactly. And that's part of the tea. And that's part of the tea while we're doing the tea. There's other things coming up as well.
I think that will be part of it. I can give you personal situations. I can recall I've had my share of surgeries in my life. And I can remember that the doctor asked my husband for permission to give me a surgery. And I said, excuse me, I think I can tell you if I can do that, but I couldn't because in that time, that was the way it was.
Yeah.
So in order to have a life-saving surgery, I had to ask my husband. Good thing he said yes. Or maybe.
Oops, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead, Leslie. I could talk. I have a lot. I was thinking.
Me too. So I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you didn't.
Okay. Another suggestion I have for your tea, because like I say, I have ideas,
Yes.
Is why don't you reach out to Sonia Army? She has that African women's whatever. And then there's the Future Black Females, and reach out to the mosques and invite the women.
Oh, could you
I don't have that. Well, I've got Sonia's.
Okay, I would take that.
Okay.
What's your last name?
I don't know.
Oh.
It's African Women Acting or something. They're on
African Women
Niagara Falls, but I can hook you up on Facebook because I'm friends with her on Facebook. I was thinking because these women from other countries, like I have a very good friend who's from India, and I'll ask the ignorant question because I want to learn. And I go, do all Indian wives have to walk behind their husbands all the time? And she denies it. But every time I see East Indian couples, the husband's in front and the woman's behind.
Yeah.
So I think this could be an empowering program for some of these women to understand.
Oh, absolutely. And maybe they should be joining BPW too, because none of us are sort of sit in the shadows.
I remember seeing a woman,
Yeah.
and I had to go up to her. This is me. And I
Oh,
said, I
yeah.
don't mean to offend you, but I have to tell you, us Western world, but she was kind. She allowed me to learn, but I think we need
Which
to,
is,
we're always learning from these people from other countries. I think sometimes they need an opportunity to learn from us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think there's like most cities you can be topless, but it's not on a social level acceptable. So there's
I've
still
done
lots
it.
of limitations.
well,
There's still a lot of
actually,
limitations to how women dress,
and you know what? And sometimes I'm very glad we can't go topless.
Okay, so
I
there's
don't think it's that attractive.
I don't think it's that comfortable. Jocelyn.
Well, that too.
Well, first of all, it's Canada.
Just-
And it's freezing out there.
Jocelyn
Yeah,
has something. Charlotte, Jocelyn has something to say.
There's a comment in the chat from Karen. I am
Yeah.
the host of the TV show on Kojiko called Seniors, News, and Views. I would love to use some of these topics.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
I would love to. I would love to talk to you.
Well, Karen, show up at one of our meetings and we'll talk about it. How's that?
Yes.
We
I had
meet-
an experience.
We meet on the fourth Wednesday of every month.
Yeah.
And it's on Zoom, so you don't have to go out. You save yourself a couple hours of
For
travel.
March and April.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Debbie, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I had an experience. It was about 3 years ago. I had a phone call from a gentleman that needed to sign for his mosque. And the whole time he was talking to me on the phone, he kept asking for my boss or somebody else to talk to. And I said, well, it's my company. I'm the only one here. It's like, you have to talk to me. So he eventually agreed to meet with me. So I went out to the mosque and the whole thing was sketchy. So I brought a friend of mine with me who was a male. And when we got there, I was shocked when I pulled up to the back of the building because there were two entrances, one for the men and one for the women. And I was told when I got there not to get out of my car, just to phone him. He would come outside. So I did. He didn't answer. So eventually my friend got out of the car and spoke to one of the men that was hanging around outside, and they went in and got the guy I was supposed to meet with. And when he came out, because I had my male friend with me, he would not look at me. He would not speak to me. And when I did answer his questions, he answered my friend. And in some cases, the friend actually had to repeat my answer before he would listen.
Yeah.
I would tell him to take his business and put it where the sun doesn't shine.
We weren't there long.
Oh, I can just imagine. I can just imagine. Anyway, look, it's 3 o'clock. It's almost 3 o'clock. I want to thank all of our panelists for being here today, for sharing with us your knowledge, your opinions, and just your presence. It is a present that you are with us. Thank you for our guests for coming. Any takeaways from our listeners, like Barb or Marlene or Catherine?
I would like to say one thing. There's two organizations that I've worked with in the past. One's called Grow Your Biz, which is a women's peer-to-peer advisory group. And the founder of that organization, she actually has a program to bring in younger women and mentor them through her program. And then there's another something is called Wilby. It's a Women in Leadership and Business. It was a conference. I'm on the meeting. It was a Women's in Leadership Business Conference. Actually started here in Niagara.
Okay.
For executive women. And part of the program was that she always gave away 100, I think it was 100 seats to girls in high school and universities to attend. sponsors paid for that so that the girls coming up could learn. And the conference is no longer in Niagara, it's in Calgary, but it still exists. It's owned by a different company now. I always thought that was fantastic. So
And just on that topic, Debbie, I'll just share with you that BPW Niagara Falls offers a bursary to the STEM program, the Niagara Regional Engineering Fair. And for the past 3 years, we've given $500 for a student who has submitted a thing in there. And last year's girl was awesome. The name is gone from I got a picture of her in my front of me, but I don't see her name tag. So it's amazing to go and judge that STEM program. And we're able to pick somebody and give them a bursary to help them move forward. So, Barb.
Actually, it's interesting you mention that because our Brampton Caledon Club does the same thing. I think it's $1,000 bursary every year to some woman, one of the young women at Sheridan College. They're in a sort of a non-traditional role.
Yep.
We've done this for many, many years. And in fact, at our just at our last our February meeting, I guess, she was actually there, and that had to be the most delightful young woman I think I've ever met. Geez, our members just couldn't get over what a intelligent but very, very sweet and polite and lovely young lady that she was. I wanted to say congratulations to all of you that were responsible for this. This was really, really interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did want to say hello to Leslie. Leslie, it's been a long time since I've seen you. And I kind of would sort of plead with the Niagara Falls group to maybe try and get you back as a speaker again because
I'm
you
happy to
always
come.
take away-
I was just getting ready to say hi to you in the chat, Barb. Anytime you want me to come back up, I'd be delighted.
I would totally encourage them. I just find that there's always so much we take away from one of your talks, and it was enjoyable. And I do totally agree that we have got to make sure that our younger people, whether it be our kids or our grandkids or whatever, they have to have some history. We really do have to speak to them about what has gone on in the past. Anyway, I know everybody's anxious to go, but I did want to have a chance to say thank you and hello to Leslie.
Well, thank you for that.
Hey, Barb.
Debbie,
Thank you.
Along the same line, Marlene put a comment in the chat. Thank you to Jocelyn, Nancy, and Charmaine for organizing this event. And Catherine Reed put a comment. Thank you for the information. And I wanted to mention Catherine is our current recording secretary at BPW Niagara Falls.
Debbie, could you give me the name of the second group you mentioned after Grow Your Business?
so it's Grow Your Biz, Grow GRO Your, and then BIZ. And
Yeah,
then the other one was the Will Be Conference. So if you just type in wilbconference.ca, you should find it.
Oh, I thought there was another one.
Nope.
Okay.
And I sent you a message via Facebook with the name of that one organization.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Melissa, for sharing your 11-year-old daughter with us and for your
Yes.
opinions.
That was good.
It is wonderful. Nancy, I'm going to turn it back to you. This is your baby.
Okay, I just want to thank everyone.
Thank you.
It never ceases to amaze me what comes out of our mouths. You know, we carry so much information, so much inspiration for other women. And I find that when we get a group of us together, that we trigger these thoughts. And I think these kind of discussions are very good for all of us, for the panelists, for the observers, and me in the background. And it has you thinking more and more. And I think we need to do this more often. And I really appreciate the panelists taking the time to sit here and discuss this because it's so very important. Some people may shrug it off, but I just think it's so vital. And we are each a beacon of information and a beacon of encouragement for our young girls. And I should say sons as well. I have no girls, I have sons, but they know to respect women. They're you know, so that's because of my activism. You know, some people just don't bother. They just let the kids be their friends. But I think that women also need to think more about their responsibilities as a woman, as a mother, as a teacher.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you, ladies, so
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. That
so
was
much for responding to my inquiries and for being participants.
Thank you for coming, Charlotte. Thank you, Debbie, Leslie, Melissa, Karen. Karen, we have to talk because there's got to be something we can do to get this out to help educate our girls and their mothers.
Yeah.
There's a big there. I just kind of notice a difference in sometimes in the way girls are raised and boys are raised, even today.
Oh,
And it's doing my best to build the self-esteem in the granddaughters.
There
So
you go. Enjoy the sunshine, ladies.
Yes,
thank you.
thanks everybody.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy.
bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.
Talking to everyone. I'll be talking to everyone because we're going to do
Thank you,
this again.
Debbie.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Oh,
Okay.
well, that